all explanation purposes, time exists as a result of human creation, and we harness that to explain the unexplainable. It's the only thing that is our only real measurement to say that we're real, that shit happened. Like we can, like, to mark our existence. It's time. Now, the universe does not obey or play by any constraints of time. The discussions, discoveries, revelations of time have been argued by spiritualists, physicists, philosophers, astronomers, thinkers, all of that. From government unclassified documents, from programs, from the CIA, remote viewing, consciousness, alternate dimensions, and of course, extraterrestrial and aliens. All this shit has been discussed. All this shit has been put in the feed. But, you know, in the capitalistic system of work, 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 hustle, 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 influence, 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 consume, consume. A lot of this shit gets murky under there. You don't really see what's going on. So even with all of the things going on, all of the shit that you know about time is iffy. You know, there's nothing that... A lot of shit when it comes to time travel, people like it as a sci-fi fantasy type reference, but you can't prove it and you can't technically disprove it. There's more instances of saying that, that people write off as coincidence. That could be something with some interference at play. Let's just say like that. Now, I know it's kind of a lot all over the place because I'm trying my best to get this shit in a concise way. And when you're talking about governments and you're talking about time and you're talking about planets and you're talking about satellites and aliens and all these words, it's only a few motherfucking names that are ringling and dangling in those circles today in 2025. And Elon Musk, number motherfucking one. Whereas integrating or the parallels of space and government and technology and hello? And we all know his obsession with outer space, with AI, and also information for every fucking American in the United States. All of your private information. Do not forget that Doge ran up and through. They ran through the IRS. They ran through Social Security. They ran through education. They ran through healthcare. They have everything about you. Elon Musk does. The man who owns Tesla, who owns Starlink, who owns SpaceX, who owns Grok, who owns X/Twitter, has all this information, who has satellites engulfing the world over. Now, and speaking of Elon's raggedy rat face ass and Tesla's, let's get a little bit into Tesla, because let's talk about Tesla. Nikola Tesla was born July 5th, 1856. He came from Austria, which is modern-day Croatia. He came to the U.S. in 1884, became a U.S. citizen in 1891. He was 35 years old when he became a citizen. Nikola Tesla was 35 years old when he became a United States citizen in 1891, okay? He was an electrical and mechanical engineer, a physicist, inventor, and worked with the likes of Thomas Edison, Westinghouse, J.P. Morgan, all of the big boys of the day. You know, the ones that were also associated with the Titanic. Okay, now some of Nikola Tesla's achievements and what he's done, because when I was in school, not a peep, not a whisper, not a damn thing was said about Nikola Tesla. At all. I mean, literally at all. There was no picture, no reference of his name or anything about Nikola Tesla when I grew up in school. Did we shift timelines back in 20? We'll get into the timeline shifts and all that. But I'm just telling you, I didn't learn shit about Nikola Tesla. So for me, about to read his achievements, it's kind of odd that I didn't, because his achievements are starting with the alternating current. Perfected and discovered the AC electricity, which provided to be superior to Thomas Edison's DC, or direct current. Now, that AC current allowed power systems to distribute electricity over miles. Wireless lighting he came up with. X-ray experimentations. Keep X-ray experimentations on your brain. Radio, remote control, mechanical oscillators and generators, electrical discharge tubes. All of this shit is a credit to Nikola Tesla, and the AC shit is shit we still use to this day. To this day. And nowhere in school were taught about Nikola Tesla. And his shit replaced Thomas Edison's shit. And we used to do like little history reports or history projects and shit on people from inventors and shit. Not Nikola Tesla never came up. I never heard of this motherfucker's name until I was an adult. No gas, no cap. So that's a red flag right there. Hello? Because there's no explanation to why I did not hear about no fucking Nikola Tesla, if he did all this. Moving on. Now, he had pursuits of wireless electrical power distribution, kind of like free energy. And the free energy that I'm going to reference that these motherfuckers took from Tartaria and America, a.k.a. Tamari, during the resets. If you watch Project Frequency, you'll know the reference of what I'm talking about here. The free energy, pulling energy from the ether, the technology that we had, that these entities, a.k.a. parasites, a.k.a. elites, have distorted, manipulated, and reprogrammed y'all motherfuckers, all of us, at lower vibrational frequencies. Now, and Nikola Tesla was obsessed with wireless communication, but he didn't have enough money to complete the wireless communication shit because J.P. Morgan, pulled the money from him. For reasons that I didn't dig into to see why J.P. Morgan pulled money from him. Now, in 1895, Tesla said that time and space can be influenced by magnetic fields. He performed experiments like inserting himself in a magnetic and electrical field, and Tesla claimed he found himself in an entirely different time and space window where he could see the past, present, and future while staying within the artificially created magnetic field. Before his death in 1943, Tesla claimed he perfected his death beam or death ray, and apparently the U.S. government was very interested in this weaponry and claimed that they didn't want it falling into the hands of the Nazis or the Soviets. Now, where things get a little more interesting here is around when Tesla died. The morning after Tesla's death, his nephew arrived at his apartment to find someone had already been through all of Tesla's shit. Technical papers were missing, and specifically a black notebook that was several hundred pages long and, according to his nephew, had pages marked government in big bold letters. Now, this is a true story. 2 days after Tesla's death, the United States Office of Alien Property seized all of Tesla's remaining working property, okay? This includes 2 truckloads of papers, artifacts and 30 barrels and bundles I don't know what the bundles were, not the hair, but I'm sure it was like bundles of papers and files and shit and wrapped in string and shit from a storage that he had. The entire collection was sealed under the Office of Alien Property. This department was in charge of seizing property and intelligence from non-U.S. citizens who were deemed an enemy to the United States. But remember, why would the Office of Alien Property seize Tesla's stuff after he died? And this department is solely in charge of seizing property and intelligence from non-U.S. citizens who were deemed an enemy, non-U.S. citizen. But Tesla was a U.S. citizen. He became a U.S. citizen in 1891 at 35 years old. Hello? He was a U.S. citizen. Now, Tesla's research was so advanced, them motherfuckers couldn't even understand it. They done gathered up all his shit, and they couldn't even read it and interpret it or nothing. So they brought in a specialist from MIT and a professor who was an electrical engineer with the National Defense Research Committee of the Office of Scientific Research and Development, who was currently developing radar systems. This person developed rotational radar therapy and developed one of the first 1 million volt generators, would later receive President's Certificate of Merit by President Truman in 1948 and Reagan's National Medal of Science in 1983. Reagan's and who was this motherfucker that did all this? Who was the motherfucker that was summoned to go through all of Tesla's stuff because the government couldn't understand all of Tesla? It was John G. Trump, the uncle to the 45th and 47th president of the United States. John G. Trump. Now, let's talk about Uncle John. And this is straight from Wikipedia. John George Trump was an American electrical engineer, inventor, and teacher who designed the high voltage generators and pioneered their use in cancer treatment, nuclear science, and manufacturing. A professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, he led high voltage research and co-founded the High Voltage Engineering Corporation, a particle accelerator manufacturer. Cool. He was the paternal uncle of the president of the United States, Donald Trump. As Robert Van de Graaf's first PhD student, Trump worked on insulation techniques that made Van de Graaf's generator smaller and installable at hospitals for X-ray cancer therapy. After going through all of Tesla's work, Trump said, John G. Trump, Uncle John, said, and I quote, "His thoughts and efforts during at least the last 15 years were primarily of a speculative, philosophical, and somewhat promotional character, often concerned with the production and wireless transmission of power, but did not include new, sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results." So he basically said that he was so obsessed with this shit, but there was nothing useful there. There's nothing groundbreaking in all his work that he was doing. This is pretty much all just useless stuff now. We got what we could out of him. Yeah, so none of this is relevant. Okay. So Uncle John said that Tesla's work was not usable, is nothing important, nothing groundbreaking. Okay. Uncle John was the one to get Tesla's work after he died because the government couldn't interpret it. Uncle John had a brother, Fred. Fred was Donald Trump's father, our current president. Donald Trump's father, Fred, was named after his father, Fred. Grandpa Frederick Trump. Okay? So, one thing we're going to highlight here, and this is where I wanted to, this is an inflection point here, because when I say that all this history is a lie, all this shit is a sham, when they make up these backstories for these people that I believe all this shit is a lie, it's all bullshit, they don't, because of technology advancement where we have information at our fingertips, and now that we have accessibility to go through all these motherfucking people, they didn't think this through, that a lot of the repetitive names that they're using, because they can't, is not original here, okay? And you're gonna notice what I'm saying as I dig deeper into Grandpa Friedrich Trump. You know, Friedrich, he was from Germany, so you know they do the Friedrich with the Friedrich Trump. So let's talk about Grandpa Trump, okay? Let's get into Grandpa Trump. Grandpa Frederick. Now, Frederick Trump, born March 14th, 1869, died March 30th, 1918. He was raised in Karlstadt, the then kingdom of Bavaria, and is now one of Germany's 16 federal states. So it's Germany. Trump's father, Christian Johannes, died on July 6, 1877, after being sick for 10 years with emphysema and allegedly leaving the family in severe medical debt. While 5 of the children worked in the family grape farm, Frederick was too sickly to do so, so his mama sent him to work as a barber's apprentice to learn the trade. Now, Frederick worked 7 days a week for 2.5 years under the barber. Who was the barber that he worked under? The barber's name was Frederick, too. Frederick Lang. So we done got 3 Freds. I done mentioned 3 Freds so far. Donald Trump's father is named Fred Trump. Donald Trump's grandfather is Frederick Trump. The man that Donald Trump's grandfather learned the trade to be a barber from in Germany, his name was Fred Lang. Okay, girl. Now, after completing his apprenticeship, he returned to Karlstadt the village had about 1,000 people living in it. He discovered that there wasn't enough business to earn a living. Bitch, you didn't know, your mama didn't know that she sent her son off to go learn a trade of barber, that when he came back home to Karlstadt, that there wasn't going to be any opportunity for him to be a barber. They didn't think that through. Or are they just that dumb? So he was also approaching the age, Frederick now, was approaching the age of eligibility for conscription to military service in the Imperial German Army. He decided to immigrate to the United States because he didn't want to join the German Army. Just like Donald Trump didn't want to join the United States Army in the draft for Vietnam. He said, oh no. Draft dodger. Both of them. It's in his blood. So he decided to immigrate to the United States. Later, this is according to the history that they're telling us. Later, Frederick said that I agree with my mother that I should go to America. Years later, his family member said that he departed secretly at night, leaving his mother a note. So one night, 16-year-old Frederick Trump just said, after getting learning a barber trade, a useless barber trade, which it decided, I'm going to hop out the window and go to America. I ain't going to even talk to my mom. I'm going to leave her a note and be gone so I don't have to join the German army. Now, in 1885, at age 16, Frederick immigrated from Bremen, Germany, to the United States aboard the steamship Eider. departing on October 7th and arriving at the Castle Garden Immigrant Landing Depot in New York City on October 19th. Now, I do have in my timeline that I'm composing that is saying that all of this bullshit is tied together and all of this shit is made up, and especially how they did the reset and the cover up with the world fairs. And in 1892, Ellis Island begins admitting immigrants. So right after Frederick came, so about 7 years later, that's when Ellis Island was broken down, which is some fake ass bullshit, but we ain't gonna talk about that later when we get into the World's Fair. Okay, so now he didn't serve in the mandatory military duty of 2 years in the army in Germany, which was illegal. Keep that in mind. Now, it says when he got to America, he moved in with his older sister, Katharina. They have no reference or mention of this bitch going ahead. So how did she end up in America? From the Great Farm, before the father died. And she done came over here and got a life in America and all this shit. So what? But let's just keep going. This is the story they telling. He moved in with his older sister, Katharina, who had immigrated in 1883. And her husband, Fred Schuster, also from Karlstadt. So they all from the same place. His sister, obviously, and his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law name is what? Fred. That's 4 Freds. Fred Trump. The brother-in-law name is Fred. The barber who he learned his trade from name is Fred. And he's going to have a son named Fred. God. Oh, shit. Okay. So there we go. He living with his sister and his brother-in-law, Fred, who all are from Karlstadt, and just arriving a few hours. 16-year-old Fred Trump, just fresh puss on the fucking docks. It literally says in a few hours, after arriving, he met a German-speaking barber. Just so happened to meet a German-speaking motherfucker. But not only a German-speaking motherfucker, this German-speaking motherfucker was a barber. Well, what luck did you know? He just so happened to meet a German-speaking barber who was looking for an employee. And so he was not only a German barber, he was looking to hire a motherfucker. And he couldn't find no other motherfucker to hire in all of New York. But he just so happened to be walking around and just bump into. How did the conversation lead to anything? How did that conversation start? Huh? Can somebody tell me? Let's keep going. So he ran into this German-speaking barber who was looking for an employee and began working for this motherfucking German-speaking barber who was looking for an employee the next day. And he worked as a barber for 6 years. That's all they tell you. And in 1891, that's 6 years after he got to New York, to the United States. In 1891, he moved to Seattle in the newly admitted U.S. state of Washington. With his life savings of several $100s, he bought the Poodle Dog, which he renamed the Dairy Restaurant. Now, this bitch was working for 6 years and amassed a good bit of money just from being a barber. Okay. So he bought this fucking restaurant named the Poodle Dog, and he renamed it the Dairy Restaurant, which was, by accounts, a hotbed of sex, booze, and money, was the indisputable center of the action in Seattle. So he had the jumping spot in motherfucking Seattle. apparently, allegedly. The restaurant served food and liquor and was advertised to include room for ladies. You know, the ladies of the night. In 1892, Trump became a U.S. citizen. He lived in Seattle until early 1893. So he lived in Seattle for about 2 years. Then he moved. He sold the dairy restaurant in March, and he moved to the emerging mining town of Monte Cristo, Washington, in Snohomish County, which is north of Seattle. After evidence of a mineral deposits had been discovered in 1889, Monte Cristo was expected to produce a fortune in gold and silver. Many prospectors moved to the area in hopes of becoming rich. Rumors about financial investments by millionaire John D. Rockefeller created an exaggerated expectation of the area's potential. Now, before leaving Seattle, Fred bought 40 acres in the Pine Lakes Plateau, 12 miles east of the city of Seattle, for $200. This bunch bought 40 acres for $200, which was the first major real estate purchase for the Trump family. So that's how the Trumps got into real estate, right there, okay? In Monte Cristo, Trump chose a plot of land near the later train station that he wanted to build a hotel on, but could not afford the $1,000 per acre fee to purchase it. Instead, he filed a gold placer claim on the land, which allowed him to claim exclusive mineral rights to the land without having to pay for it, even though the land had already been claimed by Everett resident Nicholas Rudbeck. At that time, the United States General Land Office was known to be corrupt and frequently allowed such multiple claims. Despite the placer's claim providing Trump no right to build any structure on the land, he quickly bought lumber to build a new boarding house and operated similarly to the dairy restaurant. He never tried to mine gold on the land. Blair described Trump as mining the miners, since they needed a place to sleep at night while they were mining. They always been grifters. The Trumps been grifters since then. Now, while in Monte Cristo, Trump was elected, Fred Trump was elected in 1896 as Justice of the Peace. Of Monte Cristo by 35-5 margin. And if you've never seen the movie The Count of Monte Cristo, unrelated but probably related, you should watch that. Let's talk about Donald Trump's interest with Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, when you're brilliant, sometimes you're a little bit crazy, right? We know Einstein was brilliant, but we always hear the stories. He couldn't, do simple math. 2 + 2, too much for him, but he could do the theory of relativity. So, just want to bring up something here with Nikola Tesla, and this is true. He fell in love with a pigeon. Later in life, as he got older, he lived in an apartment, and really his best friend was a pigeon that would visit him every day, fly to his window. He would feed the pigeon and spend quality time with the pigeon. And he's quoted as saying, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life." And then later, eventually the pigeon would die, and Nikola would say that at that point, he knew that his own life, he had lost meaning to life. So he was very attached to this pigeon. I just find this interesting. Okay? So we have another picture here. This is Donald Trump. This is at his Mar-a-Lago down in Florida. But what's interesting to note is what's in the background. There's all these tiles behind him. Okay? But what we want to do, let's take a closer look at these tiles. So these are the tiles. And if you look, what this says is plus ultra. Okay? So what is plus ultra? Plus ultra was founded by the greatest minds of our time. Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Gustav Eiffel, H.G. Wells. During a legendary meeting at the top of the Eiffel Tower during the 1889 World's Fair in Paris, France. It's basically a secret society of the world's most brilliant men. Their motto, I can't pronounce it, but it translates to tomorrow is ours. Tomorrow is ours. Their goal, they wanted to preserve the technology of tomorrow and possibly keep some advanced technology hidden so it could never be used for war. It was rumored that the work that they were working on continued in a secret location.
And even now, after he's been elected and we've seen the close, personal, intimate, very intimate relationship with Donald Trump and Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk. And speaking of Tesla again and Elon Musk, you know, there was a guy who lived near Tesla in New York who was a neighbor, actually. He was an author, and his name was Ingersoll Lockwood. Okay? And he wrote a book. Well, he actually wrote a series of books called The Barron Trump Novels. Okay? Now, this book existence is real and is confirmed in the Library of Congress. It was written by Ingersoll Lockwood in 1893. Now, it was called the Barron Trump Novels. Barron, in the book, is described as a quiet boy with an inquisitive look. Barron is a wealthy, aristocratic boy who grows up in Castle Trump. He is guided by the Don, Master of Masters. Now, in the book, the Don gives Barron a manuscript with map and directions that lead him to a portal he can travel through to another dimension in time. In the book. Now, the last book in the Barron Trump novel series was called The Last President. It was written in 1900. The story begins with a scene from a panicked New York City in early November election month, describing a state of uproar. Mobs of vast size are organizing under the lead of anarchists and socialists. The Fifth Avenue Hotel will be first to feel the fury of the mob. Don't you know that Trump Tower stands on Fifth Avenue? The president appoints Mr. Pence to his cabinet in the book. This is in the book, written in 1900. The Barron Trump novels, written by a guy who lived next to and knew Nikola Tesla. The book is about a young, quiet, wealthy, aristocratic boy named Barron who grows up in a place called Castle Trump, who is guided by someone called the Don, the Master of Masters. And the Don gives him a manuscript with a map and directions that lead him to a portal where he can travel through to another dimension. And in the last book in that series, it's called The Last President. And it opens with a scene from a panicked New York on election night in November. And keep in mind, it has in the book that the president appoints someone named Mr. Pence to his cabinet. Okay. Now, if y'all never heard of John Teeter, because I didn't hear John Teeter when I was growing up, but in this, let's get into John Teeter. John Teeter, on November 2nd, 2000, a person calling themselves Time Travel _0, then later John Teeter, started posting on a public forum, Equalizer style, and claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036, where the United States was now several divided territories after a nuclear World War III in which the United States was attacked by nuclear missiles. One of the first things he did was post pictures of his time machine and operational manual. Now, on March 21st, 2001, John Teeter told us that he would be leaving our timeline and returning to 2036. And on March 21st, 2021, John Teeter told us he would be leaving our timeline and returning to 2036. He released the schematics of his time machine in the operational manual. He said that he needed, let me go to the Wikipedia for John Teeter. They said that he needed the IBM. In his online postings, he claimed to be an American soldier from the year 2036 based in Tampa, Florida. He said that he was Tampa, Florida, Mar-a-Lago. He was that he was assigned a governmental time travel project. And he was sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which was needed to debug various legacy computer programs that existed in 2036, a possible reference to the Unix year 2038 problem. Now, this IBM 5100 was not something that was known about, like, to the general public. Only a few people knew about this shit. And then when he posted this shit, someone came out who actually helped build this IBM 5100 and said, oh, yeah, this actually, that's a real thing that exists. Okay. And there's a lot of things with John Teeter that you should really get into. Now, again, when I mentioned that the names get all crisscrossy, the shit gets... They use the same names. The backstories that they create after that reset, after they did this destiny swap, don't make no motherfucking sense. Okay? Because remember, I said Donald Trump's uncle, John, was the one to get Nikola Tesla's papers, research, all his documents after Tesla died. And remember, I just told you, John Teeter, who claimed to be an online time traveler. Now, it's something about it. They're not. It's very Targaryen. They can't come up with no other motherfucking names. Fred and John. And Don is the only one that's different because he was a time traveler. They may all be. Let's get back to the notes. Now, this name John is something there because we need to go into a little bit more footage.
Bringing you a story that is a reminder of something that you've heard before, okay? There's a Washington Post story today which talks about a former Forbes reporter who says Donald Trump lied to him about his wealth to get onto the Forbes 400 list. So what? Keep listening. He did it by posing as someone who was supposedly the VP of finance for his company, but it was him. And the reporter has it on audio tape. Donald Trump pretending to be someone named John Barron. The audio is from 1984. The journalist is Jonathan Greenberg. And he says, I got duped by this guy, John Barron. Take a listen.
Most of the assets have been consolidated to Mr. Trump, but you have to have Trump, and I'd like to talk to you off the record if I can, just to make it easier. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's fine. All right, but I think you can really use Donald Trump now, and you can just consolidate. I think last year somebody showed me the article, and I think you had 200 and 200, and it's been pretty well consolidated now for the most part. As I also think somebody had mentioned that you had asked about that, or somebody had, and it's been pretty well consolidated, okay?
Tonight, a wild story about
That's one.
In a 1991 interview about his love life. The 25-year-old story is making headlines as the Washington Post goes digging through Trump's past and what it promises will be a series of reports uncovering every detail about his life. In moments, Howie Kurtz will join us on that. But first, John Roberts has the details. John?
Maybe back in 1991, People magazine writer Sue Carswell was looking for the scoop on Donald Trump leaving then-girlfriend Marla Maples for model Carla Bruni. When Carswell called Trump's headquarters, she was told that Trump wasn't available. A short time later, she received a call from a fellow who identified himself as John Miller, but sounded an awful lot like Donald Trump. The voice is 25 years younger than today, but the New York accent, cadence of speech, and inflection on certain words does sound an awful lot like Trump.
Faking, impersonating people named John continuously. This shit is. Do you understand? Do you really see what's going on? I can't unpack that right now, but we'll give other notes on how these motherfuckers can't come up with new names. John Barron, John Miller, John Barron, the Barron Trump novels, John, Uncle John, John Teeter, John Connor. What is with John? Now, here's a random one. And all the reference of this is from the documentary that I am referencing, which is entitled Time Traveling Trumps, which they picked up from a continuation of people. We're just like handing baton, building upon building things, adding more to the puzzle. Okay? So here's a random fact. In February 10, 2017, a prophet who is known among some, the Christian circles, I don't know this, but I got this from that documentary as well, named Kim Clement. He said, God says, the one that is chosen shall go in and they shall say, he has hot blood. For the Spirit of God said, yes, he may have hot blood, but he will bring the walls of protection on this country in a greater way, and the economy of this country will change rapidly. I will put at your helm for 2 terms a president who will pray, but he will not be a praying president when he stars. That's just a random input. And this was in 2017. And remember, the documentary, the Time Traveling Trump documentary that I'm referencing was from 2018, 2019. So I'm sure they probably thought after he lost to Biden that, oh, this shit isn't real. So I guess we were wrong. But oh no, bitch. Oh no. He's back for the second term and the last term, the last president that we will have. Okay? Now, jumping back, because it's a lot of jump. How did Tesla get to Elon? This section is called Tesla to Elon. Because Nikola Tesla, let's just get into it. Tesla was incorporated in July 2003 by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning as Tesla Motors. Its name is a tribute to the inventor and electrical engineer Nikola Tesla. In February 2004, Elon Musk led Tesla's first funding round and became the company's chairman in 2008. He was named chief executive officer then. In 2008, the company began production of its first car model, the Roadster sports car, followed by the Model S sedan in 2012, the Model X SUV in 2015, the Model 3 sedan in 2017, the Model Y crossover in 2020, the Tesla semi-truck in 2022, and the Cybertruck pickup truck in 2023. Now, I said Tesla was incorporated by Martin and Mark in 2003. Martin began his career as an electrical engineer at Wise Technology, where he developed the YW30 ASCII computer terminal as his first product. Eberhard co-founded Network Computing Devices in 1987, where he served as chief engineer through his IPO in 1992. In 1996, Martin Eberhard founded Nouveau Media with Mark Tarpenning, the same man he founded Tesla with, where they developed the Rocket ebook, the first ebook with secure internet delivery of content. Eberhard served as chairman and CEO until Nouveau Media's acquisition by Gemstar in 2000. And 3 years later, they made Tesla. So with all this, so much coming up, this needs to let you know that time travel and the shit that they've been feeding us it's some bullshit. You need to just ask questions, interact with me, let me know what you feel, tell me your feedback on these thoughts. And what's coming up next, since I ended off with Tesla and Elon, because I wanted to see what correlations was, how did Elon get Tesla? He just put money into it. Why does it matter so much to him? Why? They're all interested in space, time, AI. And when I get into the next episode of Aliens in the Bible, which is electronic and cognitive warfare, where we're definitely going to be talking a lot more about what's going on with AI, Project Lavender, Peter Thiel, Oracle, Skydance, all of the things. But I needed to get this open with the time traveling Trump to set the stage for what the fuck is going on. So please check this out and stay tuned for more Aliens in the Bible, because we come.